The resonating thud of the judge's gavel on the dark wood table vibrated through me, a chilling echo of the many years I'd spent in quiet endurance. Here I am, Eleanor Vance, aged 67, seated in this somber courthouse, my aged hands tightly gripping a pale yellow folder, a treasure I've guarded for 13 long years. My heart hammers against my ribs with such ferocity, I fear the entire room can sense its frantic rhythm. Directly opposite me sits my daughter, Valerie, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, her hired counsel, a man in a crimson tie, gesturing towards me as if I were some common criminal. Her gaze burns with fury that I both fail to grasp and perhaps comprehend all too acutely. Beside her, attorney Mark Sullivan meticulously reviews documents, exuding the quiet assurance of someone who believes their narrative to be the absolute truth. Your Honor, Valerie begins, her voice quivering yet unwavering. My mother has held my children captive for 13 years without my consent. This constitutes parental abduction. I never granted her permission to take them. Her pronouncement strikes me like a volley of poisoned arrows. Abduction. The word itself sears my chest, lodging itself deep within the reservoir of my maternal pain. I glance back, my gaze falling upon my 3 grandchildren in the third row. Arthur, 20 years of age, Emily, 18, and Andrea, 16. Their faces are ashen, bewildered, as though they are witnessing a bewildering spectacle on a screen, a narrative they cannot comprehend. Judge Theodore Mason, a man whose greying hair and weary eyes speak of countless hours spent deliberating justice, peers at me over his spectacles. Mrs. Vance, what is your response to these allegations? My fingers tighten their hold on the envelope. Within its confines lie the indisputable proofs of a reality I have protected for years, cherishing it like a priceless heirloom or a wound that stubbornly refuses to heal. Your Honor, I finally manage, my voice a fragile instrument. I have not abducted anyone. I merely provided a home for the children my daughter left to my care. She abandoned them on my doorstep. That's a fabrication, Valerie exclaims, rising from her seat. I never abandoned them. I was dealing with significant mental health challenges. I required temporary assistance. Her attorney gently places a hand on her arm, a gesture of placating. Your Honor, my client was hospitalized due to severe postpartum depression. She was in urgent need of medical intervention. Mrs. Vance exploited that period of profound vulnerability to retain custody of the children and, in doing so, estrange them from their biological mother. A murmur ripples through the courtroom. I observe several individuals in the gallery nodding in agreement, as if they have already cast their judgment, designating the victim in this unfolding drama. Yet, I possess the unwavering certainty of the truth. I have lived it intimately, day after arduous day, for these past 13 years. The pre-dawn awakenings, the fevers that broke my heart, the homework battles, the comforting embraces when tears flowed, the innocent questions of "Where is Mommy?" Mrs. Vance, the judge says, his tone softening considerably, I understand the immense burden of raising your grandchildren. However, if the biological mother is now requesting custody, with the utmost respect, Your Honor, I interject, my voice gaining a surprising strength, there are critical facts this court must consider before any decision is rendered. I lift the pale yellow folder, holding it aloft. It is a simple gesture, yet I witness a flicker of something akin to terror cross Valerie's face. Here, I declare, I possess documentation that will fundamentally alter the perspective of this entire proceeding. It will illuminate precisely what transpired 13 years ago and the true reasons behind my daughter's sudden reappearance. And believe me, Your Honor, maternal affection is not the driving force. My voice falters slightly, not from apprehension but from an emotion I cannot yet articulate. Valerie visibly pales. "Mom," she pleads, her voice barely a whisper. "Please don't do this." "Do what, my dear?" I inquire gently. "Reveal the truth." Attorney Mark Sullivan clears his throat, a nervous sound in the charged atmosphere. "Your Honour, Mrs. Vance is attempting to distract from the core issue. Past documents cannot negate the established legal rights of my client to her children." "On the contrary," I state, my eyes locked on my daughter's, "these documents meticulously explain our presence here today. They shed light on why, after 13 years of absolute silence, not a single financial contribution towards her children's welfare, nor even a holiday acknowledgement, my daughter abruptly materializes with legal representation. The silence that descends upon the courtroom is palpable, as heavy as the air preceding a violent storm. I can discern the frantic drumming of my own heart, the rustle of papers as the lawyer nervously shuffles them, the ragged breaths of my grandchildren from behind me. The judge regards me with unwavering intensity. "Mrs. Vance, are you implying this lawsuit is driven by ulterior motives?" "I am not implying anything, Your Honour," I respond. "I am stating it as a fact." My gaze meets Valerie's, and I recognize in her eyes the same fleeting expression she wore as a child when caught in some childish transgression. And all of this is meticulously recorded within these pages. "Mom," Valerie whispers, her plea laced with desperation, "please think carefully about your actions." "I have had 13 years to contemplate, my dear," I reply, the words carrying the weight of countless sleepless nights. 13 years of bedside vigil during Arthur's fevers, 13 years of attending school functions as the sole family representative, 13 years of waiting for a call from you that never arrived. Judge Mason gently taps his gavel. "Mrs. Vance, are you prepared to submit these documents as evidence in this case?" I look down at the folder in my hands. Within lie the letters Valerie penned to me, the photographs I've carefully preserved, the receipts meticulously saved, and something else entirely. Something my grandchildren are not even aware I possess. Something that will irrevocably alter everything. "Yes, Your Honour, I am prepared." The judge nods, pausing to consult his docket. "Very well, Mrs. Vance. However, before we delve into these documents, I wish to hear your complete account of the events. Please tell us precisely what transpired 13 years ago." I close my eyes for a brief moment, allowing myself to be transported back to that singular day that irrevocably reshaped the course of my life. It was a rain-swept Tuesday in October. I was in my modest kitchen, preparing a calming cup of chamomile tea to soothe my nerves following a physician's appointment where the progressive nature of my arthritis had been confirmed. Then a series of insistent knocks echoed from my front door. It was nearly noon. My voice softens, tinged with the bittersweet weight of memory. Valerie appeared at my doorstep, accompanied by the 3 children. Arthur was 7 years old, Emily 5, and Andrea barely 3. They were disheveled, their clothing rumpled, and the younger ones were weeping from hunger. I glance towards my grandchildren. Arthur offers me a mournful smile, as if recalling faint impressions of that day. Emily's eyes are distant, shimmering, and little Andrea clutches herself, a familiar posture of a frightened child. "My daughter entered my home like a tempest," I continue. "She carried a plastic bag containing some of the children's belongings, all in disarray, nothing clean. She said to me, 'Mum, I need you to look after them for a little while. It will only be a few weeks until I resolve my issues.'" Valerie lowers her gaze. Her attorney murmurs something into her ear, but she remains unresponsive. I know with absolute certainty that she remembers that day as vividly as I do. I pressed her, inquiring about the nature of her problems, offering financial assistance, asking if something had occurred with the children's father. However, she merely repeated that she would be back imminently. She bestowed a brief kiss upon each of them and departed. The children rushed to the window, their voices pleading, "Mommy, Mommy!" But she had already entered a waiting taxi and vanished from sight. The silence in the room becomes absolute. I can sense the slowing of everyone's breath, a collective holding of anticipation. That evening, Arthur inquired when his mother would return. I assured him, soon. Andrea cried, inconsoling herself for the absence of her cherished teddy bear, left behind at Valerie's residence. Emily, my sweet Emily, with her small, diligent hands, assisted me in preparing dinner, as if instinctively understanding that the mantle of responsibility for their well-being now rested solely upon my shoulders. My voice cracks slightly, and I reach for the glass of water offered by the court officer. Days bled into weeks. I had no knowledge of Valerie's whereabouts, as she had relocated. I lacked any means to contact her. The children's inquiries about her became a daily ritual. Arthur began experiencing nocturnal enuresis. Emily fell into a prolonged silence, ceasing to speak for nearly a month, and Andrea, my youngest, developed a persistent cough that refused to subside. I observed Valerie shifting uncomfortably in her seat, her fingers nervously tracing the pattern of a ring on her finger. I made the decision to enroll them in the local school. I needed their records, their birth certificates. Upon visiting Valerie's former address, I learned from neighbors that she had vacated the apartment, leaving behind 3 months of unpaid rent. The landlady entrusted me with a box of her daughter's discarded possessions, which included some of the children's essential documents. Judge Mason meticulously takes notes. "Did you attempt to report the situation to the authorities?" "Your Honor, at that juncture I believed it to be a temporary predicament. Valerie had encountered difficulties before, but she had never completely relinquished her parental responsibilities. I held on to the conviction that she would eventually return. Furthermore, what recourse did I have? To state that my daughter had entrusted her children to me and was not returning. In that specific moment, no legal transgression had occurred. It was simply a mother entrusting her offspring to their grandmother. I paused, my gaze directed squarely at Valerie. However, months dissolved into years. Arthur reached the age of 8 and inquired if he could invite his mother to his birthday celebration. I promised we would endeavor to locate her. Emily commenced her primary schooling. When her teacher inquired about her parents, she gestured towards me and proudly declared, "This is my mother, Eleanor." Tears welled in my eyes, threatening to spill, but I suppressed them. This was not the time for tears, it was a time for remembrance. The expenses mounted exponentially. My pension, once adequate for a solitary existence, now barely sufficed. Suddenly I was tasked with feeding, clothing, and educating 3 growing children. I liquidated some of my cherished jewelry. I accepted a position cleaning houses on weekends. A neighbor, Mrs. Elmer Jensen, provided invaluable assistance, watching over the younger children during my work hours. The judge's attention is piqued by the mention of the name Jensen. "Is she related to you?" "She is my sister, Your Honor," I reply, "and she can readily attest to the formidable challenges we navigated during those initial years." Valerie and her legal counsel exchange looks of palpable concern. This turn of events was clearly unforeseen. When Andrea turned 5, we faced a critical health crisis. She contracted pneumonia and required hospitalization. The medical professionals urgently requested health insurance information and parental authorization, documents I did not possess. It was at this precise moment that I resolved to pursue the legal avenues for obtaining temporary guardianship of the children. My voice strengthens with conviction. I retained an attorney, utilizing the meager savings I had painstakingly accumulated. The expense amounted to $800, a sum I could ill afford, but it was an absolute necessity. The attorney attempted to locate Valerie to inform her of the guardianship proceedings. As mandated by law, we published notices in the local newspaper. There was no response whatsoever. Did you succeed in obtaining legal guardianship? The judge inquires. Yes, Your Honour. 10 years ago, this very court officially granted me legal guardianship of my 3 grandchildren. I possess all the requisite documentation. For a period of 3 years, legal precedent dictated that we continue our search for the biological mother. She never materialized, never contacted us, and never contributed a single cent towards their upkeep. Valerie suddenly stands, her voice sharp. I was unwell, I suffered from depression. I was incapable of providing care in that state. Please resume your seat, the judge orders, his tone firm. He then turns his attention back to me. Please continue, Mrs. Vance. The children grew and thrived under my care. Arthur graduated from high school with academic distinction. Emily garnered accolades in poetry competitions. Andrea discovered a passion for the guitar and formed a school band. They received therapeutic support when necessary. I ensured they received their vaccinations, attended every school event, and celebrated every birthday, every triumph, every significant milestone in their lives. I observe my grandchildren, noting Arthur's solemn nod, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. I never deceived them regarding their mother. I consistently conveyed that she loved them but was, at that time, unable to fulfill her maternal role. I showed them photographs of her from their infant years. I meticulously preserved every drawing they created for her, harboring the persistent hope of her return. And they had no contact with her during all these years? The judge asks. Not a single instance, Your Honour, until 2 months ago when she appeared at my residence, accompanied by her legal representative, demanding custody. The judge leans forward, a new intensity in his expression. 2 months? What has prompted this change after 13 years of complete absence? A faint, melancholic smile touches my lips as I retrieve the pale yellow folder once more. That answer, Your Honour, is contained within these documents. Judge Theodore Mason extends his hand towards me. Mrs. Vance, kindly approach and present the documents you have referenced. I rise slowly, my knees protesting with the familiar ache of arthritis, but my resolve far surpasses any physical discomfort. I walk towards the bench, the yellow folder held tightly against my chest. I can hear the agitated clicking of Valerie's heels against the polished wooden floor. Your Honour, Attorney Mark Sullivan announces, standing abruptly. I formally request that any documents presented be thoroughly examined by the defence prior to their admission as evidence. Naturally, the judge concedes. Mrs. Vance, please entrust the documents to the clerk for review by both parties. I carefully open the folder, as if unlocking a treasure chest I've safeguarded for years. My fingers tremble almost imperceptibly, not from fear, but from the profound emotion of witnessing the truth finally emerge into the light. Within, I find photographs, handwritten letters, receipts, and several folded papers, each forming a crucial piece of this intricate narrative. Let us begin with these, I say, withdrawing a packet of photographs bound by a crimson ribbon. These were taken on the very day Valerie entrusted the children to my care. The clerk accepts the photographs and transmits them to the judge, who examines each one with deliberate scrutiny. His expression gradually transforms, deepening into one of gravity. Describe, Mrs. Vance, what these images depict.
The initial photograph displays Arthur in attire that is both soiled and torn. You can clearly discern holes in the soles of his shoes. The second captures Emily, her face bearing remnants of dried food and her hair hopelessly tangled. The third portrays Andrea, my youngest, attired in a diaper that had evidently not been changed for several hours. Valerie buries her face in her hands. Her lawyer whispers urgently in her ear, but she repeatedly shakes her head. Your Honor, I continue, I took these photographs to meticulously document the precise condition in which the children arrived at my home. My intention was not to use them against her, but rather, as a nurse neighbor had advised, it was crucial to maintain a comprehensive record of all relevant circumstances. The judge passes the photographs to Valerie's counsel, who rapidly peruses them and discreetly shows them to his client. I observe my daughter squeezing her eyes shut tightly, as if desperately attempting to obliterate those painful recollections. Now, I announce, retrieving a second collection of documents. These are the letters Valerie penned to me during the initial 6 months following her departure with the children. The judge accepts the letters and immediately discerns the familiar, handwritten script.
These are in your daughter's own hand, Mrs. Vance. Yes, Your Honor, I would recognize her penmanship anywhere. I meet Valerie's gaze. Tell the judge, daughter, what those letters conveyed. Valerie remains silent. However, her legal counsel retrieves the letters and commences reading their contents. His expression undergoes a dramatic transformation as he progresses through them. Your Honor, I state, my voice ringing with clarity. In the initial letter dated 3 weeks after she relinquished the children, Valerie informed me that she had met a gentleman named Javier Dawson and was relocating with him to a different city. She implored me to care for the children for an extended period, as her new partner expressed no inclination towards immediate familial responsibilities. The silence in the courtroom becomes so profound that the faintest sound would be amplified. All eyes are fixed on Valerie, who has begun to weep silently. In the second letter, I proceed, she conveyed that she was expecting Javier's child. She stated that she could not return for the children as he had issued an ultimatum. He would abandon her if she introduced any baggage from her past into their new life. Pregnant? The judge interjects, a note of astonishment in his voice. Yes, Your Honor. My daughter subsequently had another child with Javier Dawson, a boy who is now 12 years of age and resides with them, a child she was able to raise because it suited her new relationship. Arthur, Emily, and Andrea exchange looks of utter astonishment from their seats. This revelation is entirely new to them. I had deliberately withheld this information, not wishing to inflict further pain upon them. In the third letter, my voice hardens, Valerie requested that I sign some papers, officially relinquishing any claim I might have on her, thereby enabling her to embark on a fresh start, unburdened by legal entanglements. She offered me $500 as reimbursement for the expenses I had incurred, caring for her children up to that point. Attorney Mark Sullivan's complexion has turned ashen. This information was unequivocally not part of the narrative his client had presented to him. And did you sign those papers? The judge asks. No, Your Honor. I responded by informing her that I did not require her financial contribution. However, if she truly desired to vanish from our lives, she should do so completely. I instructed her not to contact us again until she was genuinely prepared to embrace motherhood. I extract another document from the folder. This represents her reply to my letter, the final correspondence we exchanged over the course of 13 years. The judge reads the document, his expression hardening palpably. Mrs. Vance, would you be so kind as to read aloud the contents of this letter? I take the paper, my hands trembling, but my voice emerges steady and clear. Mum, it's fine, I won't bother you anymore. Take good care of the children because I have my own family now. If anyone ever asks, tell them their mum had to go far away for work. I don't want them to suffer anymore. Sincerely, Valerie. Tears stream down my grandchildren's faces. Arthur rises from his seat as if to approach me, but Emily gently restrains him, her hand on his arm. Your Honor, I state, carefully placing the letter back into the folder. For 13 years, I respected that decision. I never sought out my daughter. I never attempted to contact her. I raised her children with profound love, utilizing the limited resources at my disposal, always with the hope that one day she would mature and return for the right reasons. And what leads you to believe she has returned now? The judge inquires. I offer a faint, sorrowful smile as I withdraw the final document from the envelope, because 3 months ago, Your Honor, my brother, Arthur Vance, Valerie's uncle, who resided in Texas and was without children, passed away. The judge leans forward, his interest rekindled. And what, pray tell, does that have to do with this present case? My brother, Your Honor, bequeathed a substantial inheritance to each of his grandchildren, $50,000 respectively for Arthur, Emily, and Andrea. Valerie lets out a choked sob, and her attorney appears to be contemplating an immediate withdrawal from the case. However, I continue, my voice firm, the inheritance can only be claimed by the children if they are under the custody of a direct relative, namely their mother or their grandmother, and I, as their current legal guardian, had already initiated the necessary procedures for them to access those funds upon reaching the age of majority. The judge regards me with unwavering intensity. Are you suggesting that Mrs. Valerie Vance has returned solely for the purpose of accessing her children's inheritances? I extract the final page from the envelope. It is a copy of a legal document that proved exceptionally challenging to procure. Your Honor, this is a private report I commissioned concerning my daughter's activities in recent months. It unequivocally demonstrates that precisely 2.5 months ago, she engaged the services of attorney Mark Sullivan and commenced an investigation into my brother's inheritance. Valerie's lawyer abruptly stands. Objection. That investigation is private and constitutes an illegal act. It is entirely legal, I calmly retort. I retained a licensed private investigator after my daughter suddenly appeared at my doorstep with legal threats. I had every right to safeguard my grandchildren. The judge taps his gavel. Order in the court. He turns his gaze upon me, his expression a complex blend of respect and profound curiosity. Mrs. Vance, is there anything else contained within that envelope that the court should be apprised of? I look down at the envelope, which now feels considerably lighter, yet I know it still holds the most significant secret of all. Yes, Your Honor, there is something else, something that even my grandchildren are not yet aware of. Judge Theodore Mason adjusts his spectacles, his eyes now fixed on me with an intensity he has not previously displayed. Mrs. Vance, what else does that envelope contain that you deem relevant to this particular case? My fingers search for the last document, tucked away at the very bottom of the pale yellow envelope. It is a single sheet, folded multiple times, yellowed with the passage of time, yet containing the most pivotal words of this entire saga. However, before I reveal its contents, I know there is something of paramount importance that I must accomplish. Your Honor, before I present this final document, I would like the court to hear directly from my grandchildren. I believe it is only equitable that they have the opportunity to express their personal perspectives on this matter. Valerie sits up straighter, a glimmer of hope returning to her eyes. Her lawyer, Mark Sullivan, nods his assent without hesitation. Your Honor, my client concurs. The minors possess the inherent right to articulate their preferences. The judge deliberates the request. Very well. Arthur Vance, please approach the stand. My eldest grandson rises slowly. At 20 years of age, Arthur is a tall, slender young man, possessing the keen intellect of his grandfather and the gentle sensitivity he inherited from our family line. He approached the witness stand with deliberate movements, as if each step was carefully considered. Arthur, the judge addressed him kindly, I recognize this must be an incredibly trying time for you. Please know that you can speak with complete candor. Do you recall your birth mother? Arthur cleared his throat, his gaze briefly flicking to Valerie before he responded. Yes, Your Honor, I have some hazy recollections. I remember there was a great deal of disarray at home. I recall that at times we lacked sufficient food, and my grandmother, Eleanor, would arrive with provisions from the market. I remember the day we were brought to her residence. She gave us baths, fresh clothing, and prepared chicken soup for us. The judge continued, And how do you feel about your mother's absence throughout these intervening years? Arthur closed his eyes for a moment. Your Honor, for an extended period I harbored anger. I couldn't comprehend why my mother did not return. My classmates had parents who collected them from school, attended their athletic events, and assisted them with their studies. I had my grandmother, Eleanor, who worked 2 jobs to provide for us, yet never missed a parent-teacher conference. I observed Valerie weeping quietly, but Arthur proceeded with a composure that pierced my heart. Upon reaching the age of 15, my anger dissipated. I came to understand that my grandmother had relinquished her peace of mind, her health, and her financial reserves on our behalf. I realized she was under no obligation to raise us, yet she did so out of love for us. The judge then inquired, And now that your biological mother has reappeared seeking custody, how do you feel? Arthur looked directly at Valerie. Mom, he began, if I may call you that, I am pleased to learn you are well. I am glad you have managed to resolve your difficulties, but I cannot feign that these 13 years have not transpired. I cannot pretend it does not sting to know you established another family while we were growing up, questioning our own worth. The room fell into an absolute silence. Valerie's sobs grew more pronounced. Arthur, the judge asked, where do you wish to reside? Your Honor, I am of legal age and can make my own decisions. However, if my response can contribute to the protection of my younger sisters, then the answer is unequivocal. I wish to remain with my grandmother Eleanor. She is the one who raised us, who loves us without reservation, and who has never abandoned us. Arthur returned to his seat, and the judge summoned Emily. My 18-year-old granddaughter approached the stand with her characteristic elegance, though I could discern the tension in her posture. Emily, the judge stated, you are also of legal age. What is your perspective on this matter? Emily inhaled deeply before speaking. Your Honor, my memories are somewhat clearer than Arthur's, as I was a little older when we came to live with my grandmother. I recall that my biological mother wept frequently. I remember that at times she would remain in bed all day, and we were compelled to care for ourselves. Valerie interjected from her seat. I was unwell. I was suffering from postpartum depression. The judge silenced her with a stern glance. Kindly permit the young lady to conclude. Emily continued, I understand you were unwell, Mum, but I also remember the day we arrived at Grandma Eleanor's residence. For the first time in a considerable while, someone inquired if we had eaten. Someone read us stories before we slept. Someone assured us that everything would be all right. Tears welled in my eyes as I absorbed my granddaughter's words. Grandma Eleanor took us to a psychologist when we experienced nightmares. She enrolled us in extracurricular activities to ensure we did not feel ostracized from other children. When I was 14 and diagnosed with juvenile diabetes, she diligently learned about nutrition, glucose monitoring, and every aspect necessary for my care. The judge made notes as Emily spoke. And concerning your preference to reside with your biological mother or your grandmother? Your Honor, Emily replied, my biological mother is a stranger to me. I know we share blood, but my grandmother Eleanor shared my childhood, my adolescence, my anxieties, and my aspirations. The decision is straightforward. Finally, the judge called for Andrea. My youngest granddaughter, 16 years old, approached the stand with a spirit of resolve that had always defined her. She bore the most physical resemblance to me, yet possessed a spirited defiance that reminded me of Valerie in her youth. Andrea, the judge began, you are a minor, but your opinion holds significant weight with the court. What do you recollect about your life prior to residing with your grandmother? Andrea regarded Valerie with an unreadable expression. Your Honor, she stated, I was very young, but I do remember things. I remember feeling hunger. I remember crying and no one coming to comfort me. I remember the scent of the dwelling where we resided, a scent of sorrow and abandonment. Valerie seemed to shrink within herself, as if her youngest daughter's words were physical blows. But I also remember, Andrea continued, the inaugural day at Grandma Eleanor's house. I recall she gave me a warm bath and dressed me in clean pajamas that smelled of fabric softener. I remember she prepared warm milk with honey for me before bed and sang me a lullaby. Would you like to become better acquainted with your biological mother? The judge inquired. Andrea pondered for a moment. Your Honor, she admitted, I will not be untruthful. I am curious to meet the woman who gave me life, but I am also apprehensive that she will depart again, apprehensive that her assurances are akin to those she made 13 years ago. And where do you feel most secure? With my grandmother Eleanor, Your Honor. She has never faltered in her commitment to me, nor has she ever deceived me. When I asked her why my mother had left, she did not fabricate fanciful narratives. She conveyed the truth, that adults sometimes make arduous decisions, and that she loved me sufficiently to remain. Andrea returned to her seat, and the judge turned his attention back to me. Mrs. Vance, he said, your grandchildren have expressed their preferences with great clarity. Is there any further information the court should possess before rendering a decision? I glanced at the yellow envelope clutched in my hands, then at my 3 grandchildren. They had demonstrated immense courage in voicing their truths. Now it was my turn to be equally brave with mine. Yes, Your Honor, there is something further, something that will fundamentally alter the perspective of this case. I extracted the final document from the envelope. It was a sheet of paper I had folded and unfolded so many times that the creases were now indelible. This was a document I had discovered 2 years prior amongst the belongings Valerie had left behind in her apartment. A document she herself had authored and signed. Valerie's complexion turned ashen. Her attorney leaned towards her, but my daughter shook her head repeatedly. What sort of document is it, Mrs. Vance? A voluntary relinquishment of parental rights, Your Honor, penned in my daughter's own hand, signed and dated 3 days after she entrusted the children to my care. Judge Theodore Mason rose abruptly from his seat, his expression shifting from professional curiosity to utter astonishment. A voluntary relinquishment of parental rights. Mrs. Vance, are you absolutely certain of your assertion? Completely certain, Your Honor. I extended the document towards the court clerk. This paper was among the items Valerie abandoned in her apartment. The landlady provided it to me along with photographs and other personal effects my daughter left behind. Valerie swayed in her seat as if on the verge of collapse. Her attorney, Mark Sullivan, took the document with trembling hands, his face draining of all color as he read it. This cannot be real, he murmured. Read it aloud, if you please, the judge commanded. The lawyer cleared his throat and began to read in a strained voice. I, Valerie Vance, aged 26, hereby voluntarily relinquish all my rights as the mother of Arthur Vance, aged 7, Emily Vance, aged 5, and Andrea Vance, aged 3. I acknowledge that I lack the emotional, economic, or psychological capacity to adequately raise them. A palpable silence descended, so profound that the agitated breathing of everyone present was audible. My grandchildren exchanged bewildered and pained glances. Continue, the judge instructed in a somber tone. I fully authorize my mother, Eleanor Vance, to make all legal, medical, and educational decisions concerning my children. I waive any right to visit them, contact them, or claim them in the future. This decision is definitive and irrevocable. Signed, Valerie Vance, dated October 15th, 2011. Valerie erupted into hysterical sobs. I was out of my mind. I didn't comprehend what I was writing. I was mentally unwell. The judge rapped his gavel repeatedly. Order. Mrs. Vance, do you have witnesses to attest that this document was written voluntarily by your daughter? Yes, Your Honor. The landlady of the building where Valerie resided, Mrs. Paula Sterling, can testify that my daughter requested paper and a pen to compose an important letter 3 days after leaving the children. She can also confirm that Valerie was conscious and coherent during those days. Attorney Mark Sullivan whispered urgently to his client, but Valerie continued to sob uncontrollably. Furthermore, I continued, there is another matter the court should be privy to, something I discovered only 2 weeks ago that elucidates why my daughter returned at this precise juncture. All eyes fixed upon me. I could feel the tension in the room escalating. Your Honor, I retained a private investigator not merely to ascertain my daughter's recent whereabouts, but to fully comprehend her current circumstances. What we uncovered is quite telling. I produced a small folder from my purse. Valerie and her partner Javier Dawson are presently confronting a severe financial crisis. 6 months ago, Javier lost his employment. 4 months ago, they received an eviction notice from their residence. 3 months ago, precisely when they became aware of my brother's inheritance, they initiated proceedings to secure custody of my grandchildren. Valerie lifted her head, her eyes red-rimmed from weeping. Mom, she pleaded, please let me finish, daughter. My voice, though firm, lacked cruelty. The investigator also discovered that you and Javier have been subsisting on loans and credit cards. You are indebted by more than $30,000 in accumulated liabilities. The judge examined the documents I had provided. And you posit that your grandchildren's inheritance is the solution they seek for their financial predicament? I do not posit it, Your Honor. I know it. I looked directly at Valerie. For a week prior, my daughter had contacted me on the telephone for the first time in 13 years. The astonishment in the room was palpable. Even my grandchildren looked at me in disbelief, as I had not apprised them of this call. And what did she convey during that conversation? The judge inquired. She informed me that she had matured, that she had overcome her difficulties, and that she desired to have her children returned to her. When I inquired as to the reason for the long delay, she stated she had been saving money to provide them with a better life. I paused for dramatic effect. Then I questioned her about my brother's inheritance. There was a prolonged silence, after which she replied, Mom, that money belongs to my children. I simply wish to ensure they receive it at the appropriate time. And what was your response? I informed her that her children already had access to that inheritance through me, their legal guardian, and that the money was securely held in a trust fund until each of them reached the age of 21. It was then that her demeanor shifted entirely. Valerie covered her face with her hands, anticipating what was to come. She informed me that as their biological mother, she possessed a greater entitlement to manage that inheritance than I did. She stated she had consulted with an attorney and could legally pursue custody. She threatened me, Your Honor. The judge leaned forward. How did she threaten you? She told me that if I did not voluntarily transfer custody and control of the inheritance, she would accuse me of kidnapping. She claimed she had witnesses who could attest that I had deliberately alienated the children from her. She asserted that a judge would invariably favor a biological mother over a grandmother. Arthur suddenly stood from his seat. Grandma, why did you not inform us that she threatened you? Because I did not wish for you to be more concerned than necessary, I replied softly, and because I was confident the truth would emerge at the opportune moment. The judge rapped his gavel. Young man, please resume your seat. He then addressed me directly. Mrs. Vance, do you possess a recording of that telephone conversation? No, Your Honor, but I have something superior. I offered a slight smile. Following that call, my daughter sent me several text messages in which she reiterated her threats. Messages that are preserved on my phone and which I have printed for the court. I produced the printed messages and handed them to the clerk. The judge read them silently, his expression growing more severe with each one. Would you kindly read some of these messages to the court? The judge requested. I took the printouts and read in a clear voice. Message from July 18th. Mum, consider this carefully. I am the biological mother, and any judge will side with me. Do not make this more complicated than it needs to be. I continued. Message from July 20th. I have been speaking with my lawyer. He says what you have done could be construed as parental kidnapping. You could face imprisonment. And the final message, my voice firming, from July 22nd. Mum, if you grant me custody voluntarily, we can reach an agreement regarding the inheritance, 50-50. You keep half for having cared for them. I keep half because I am their mother. But if you force me into a trial, I receive everything. The judge placed the documents on his desk and looked directly at Valerie. Mrs. Vance, do you confirm that you sent these messages? Valerie sobbed, utterly incapable of uttering a word. Her lawyer appeared completely defeated. Your Honor, I said gently, I wish to make it clear that I am not seeking retribution against my daughter. I understand she endured difficult periods in her youth. I acknowledge that early motherhood and mental health challenges can lead to desperate decisions. I looked at Valerie with a mixture of sorrow and resolve. But what I cannot countenance is that after 13 years of complete absence, after formally renouncing her maternal rights, after establishing a new family and entirely neglecting these children, she now reappears solely because financial matters are involved. What is your request of the court? The judge inquired. That my permanent legal guardianship over my minor grandchildren be confirmed, that my daughter's demand for custody be entirely rejected, and that a restraining order be issued, prohibiting Valerie from approaching the children unless they, upon reaching legal age, voluntarily elect to engage with her. Valerie cried out from her seat. You cannot take my children from me forever. I turned to her, my expression a blend of pain and firmness. Daughter, you yourself relinquished them 13 years ago. I am not taking anything from you. I am merely safeguarding what you abandoned. The judge declared a 30-minute recess to review all the presented documentation. The courtroom partially emptied, but I remained seated, clutching my purse to my chest as if it were a protective shield. My grandchildren approached me, encircling me with their arms in a silent embrace that spoke volumes. Grandma, Andrea whispered, why did you never tell us she had formally given us up in writing? Because I wanted you to have the opportunity to form your own judgment about your mother when you were old enough to understand, I replied, stroking her hair. I did not want you to grow up harboring resentment in your hearts. Arthur squeezed my hand. But you misled us all these years when you said perhaps she would return. I did not mislead you, my dears. There was always the possibility that she would mature and return for the right reasons. I clung to that hope for a considerable time. I glanced in the direction of Valerie, who was conferring with her lawyer in hushed, desperate tones. But when she contacted me last week, I realized immediately that she had not returned for your sake. She had returned for the money. Emily settled beside me. What will happen now, Grandma? I do not know, my child, but I know that we have spoken the truth, and that is all we can do. During the recess, I observed Valerie slowly approaching us. Her lawyer attempted to detain her, but she disregarded him. She advanced with hesitant steps, as if each movement represented an arduous climb. "Mum," she began, her voice a broken whisper, "can we speak in private?" Her voice trembled, reminiscent of her childhood when she had misbehaved. "I know I made terrible errors, but I have changed. I have truly changed. Have you changed, Valerie, or do you merely require funds?" My question was direct, yet devoid of cruelty. After so many years, I had earned the right to unvarnished honesty. She lowered her gaze. "Both are true. Yes, I need the money, but I have also missed my children throughout these years." "You have missed them?" My voice rose slightly. "Valerie, you had 13 years to miss them. 13 years to call, to write, to send a postcard at Christmas. 13 years to inquire about their well-being, if they required anything, if they remembered you." "I was afraid," she whispered. "I was afraid they would resent me for abandoning them." "Then why now? Why, after 13 years of apprehension, do you suddenly find the courage to contend for them in court?" Valerie leaned against the window as if requiring physical support to continue the conversation. "Because Javier told me that if I did not attempt to reclaim my children and their inheritance, he would leave me. He stated he could not remain with a woman who had forfeited $50,000. The stark honesty of her confession caught me off guard. For a fleeting moment, I saw the frightened girl she once was, caught between insurmountable choices. "Then you have not changed at all," I remarked with profound sadness. 13 years ago, you made a decision dictated by a man's demands. Today, you stand here for the very same reason." "It is not that simple." Her voice escalated, but she quickly glanced around to ensure no one overheard us. "Mum, you do not comprehend the pressure I have endured. Javier has supported me throughout these years. Without him, I possess nothing. I have no employment. I lack my own residence. I have no savings." "And what of your other child?" I inquired. "The child you were able to raise because it suited your relationship." Valerie stumbled as if I had struck her. "Paul is different. He was born within my marriage to Javier. He was integral to our plans. Arthur, Emily, and Andrea were also your children, Valerie. They too deserved unconditional affection." "But I could not provide it," she exclaimed, tears coursing down her face. "I was a child when I bore them. I did not know how to be a mother. Every time Arthur cried, I cried as well. Every time Emily experienced nightmares, I suffered panic attacks. I could not manage them. For the first time in our exchange, I felt a surge of compassion for my daughter." "Then why did you not seek my assistance at that time? Why did you not approach me and say, 'Mom, I cannot do this alone'?" "Because I feared you would judge me. I feared you would deem me an inadequate mother." "Valerie," my voice softened, "I would have helped you. We would have discovered a means to raise them collectively, but you chose to flee. You chose to abandon them entirely." "I know," she sobbed, "I know, and I have lived with that guilt all these years. But Mom, now I can offer them something superior. With the inheritance, I can provide them with a life I could never have offered them previously." "With the inheritance, Valerie, are you comprehending my words? It is not about the monetary sum. It is about 13 years of absence. It is about you penning a renunciation of parental rights. It is about you establishing another family and utterly forgetting them." Valerie straightened herself, and for a moment I detected a glimmer of the resolve that had characterized her in her youth. "Mum, legally I remain their biological mother. That document I wrote was not notarized. It was not presented before a judge. Technically, it lacks full legal validity." And there it was. The genuine Valerie resurfaced once more, calculating and manipulative. "So this has never been about reclaiming your children. This is about prevailing in a legal dispute to access the funds. It is about both matters, she insisted. Mum, we can reach an accord. I will take the children, but you may visit them whenever you wish. We can share the responsibility of raising them, and regarding the inheritance, we can divide it equitably. You have expended resources on them throughout these years. It is only fair that you receive compensation. Compensation? The words spill from my lips like a venomous torrent. Valerie, did you truly believe I raised your offspring with an expectation of financial gain? Did you imagine my taking them to a physician when fevers gripped them was motivated by an anticipated payment? Did I endure sleepless nights during their nightmares because I foresaw monetary compensation? Stop. Please cease this charade. Valerie covers her ears, mimicking a child unwilling to confront an unvarnished truth. I will not cease, Valerie, for these are the very truths you necessitate hearing. I did not nurture those youngsters as a calculated investment. I cherished them because of my profound affection, because they are intrinsically part of me, because when you deserted them, a guiding hand was undeniably required to offer them unconditional love. Valerie lowers her hands, her gaze meeting mine with an expression I haven't witnessed in years. It mirrors the look she bore as a teenager, upon grasping the gravity of a significant misstep. Mom, she utters, her voice barely a whisper. What must I do for you to grant me absolution? The inquiry catches me entirely unprepared. For countless years I had envisioned this precise juncture. I had meticulously considered my response should she ever implore for clemency. Yet now, in this very moment, the appropriate words elude me. Valerie, absolution is not a matter of negotiation. It is not a prize attained through adherence to prescribed behaviors. Rather, absolution is a gift you bestow upon yourself, a deliberate act to liberate your spirit from the shackles of lingering resentment. Therefore, do you absolve me? I regard my daughter, this woman of 39 years who still craves her mother's affirmation. Within me stirs a complex tapestry of love, profound disappointment, an ocean of sadness, and a flicker of enduring hope. I absolve you for being a frightened child, ill-equipped for the role of a mother. I absolve you for making desperate choices born from overwhelming circumstances. I absolve you for fleeing when the weight of responsibility became too burdensome. Valerie's countenance brightens with a nascent hope, but I press on. However, I cannot absolve you for reappearing solely when financial matters are at stake. I cannot absolve you for leveraging threats of incarceration to achieve your desires. And I cannot permit you to inflict further harm upon those children. The hopeful smile vanishes from her features. So there is nothing I can do. Indeed, there is a course of action available to you, I state with unwavering resolve. You may return to your life, confront your personal challenges, and when you have genuinely matured and transformed, when you are capable of extending authentic affection without expectation of reciprocation, then and only then may your children themselves decide if they wish to reconnect with you. And that inheritance rightfully belongs to them, Valerie, and I shall ensure they receive it when they are sufficiently prepared to manage it with prudence. A court official materializes in the corridor. The recess has concluded. The judge awaits our return. As we retrace our steps towards the courtroom, Valerie gently grasps my arm. Mum, one final query. If I withdraw this legal action, would you permit me occasional supervised visits with the children? I pause, my gaze locking with hers. That determination, Valerie, rests not with me, it rests with them. Should they express a desire for your presence, I will honor their decision, but I will not coerce them into such an encounter. We enter the courtroom, where the judge presides, and I am acutely aware that the ensuing moments will shape the destiny of my lineage. Judge Theodore Mason assumes his position on the bench, and a palpable sense of anticipation permeates the chamber. Valerie and her legal counsel, Mark Sullivan, resume their seats at their table, yet I perceive a shift in her demeanour. She appears more dejected, diminished, as if the hallway exchange has entirely depleted her combative spirit. Ladies and gentlemen, the judge commences, his voice resonating with solemnity. I have had ample opportunity to review all submitted documentation, and I must confess that this case presents exceedingly troubling facets that transcend a mere dispute over guardianship. He directs his gaze intently towards Valerie. Mrs. Vance, following my examination of the written renunciation of parental rights in your own hand, the text messages wherein you issued threats against your mother, and the established history of abandonment spanning 13 years, I find myself compelled to pose several profound questions to you. Valerie rises, her frame trembling, steadying herself against the table. Do you affirm that you voluntarily penned the renunciation of parental rights, dated October 15th, 2011? Your Honour, interjects her attorney, Mark Sullivan, my client was navigating a severe mental health crisis at that juncture. She cannot be held accountable for decisions made under such duress. Attorney Sullivan, the judge responds, his tone stern, I have meticulously reviewed the medical reports you submitted as evidence of your client's depression. The documentation indicates her discharge from psychiatric care 2 months prior to her execution of that renunciation. According to medical records, her physician certified her mental stability, posing no threat to herself or others. Valerie sways precariously, and her attorney assists her back into her seat. Furthermore, the judge continues, I have cross-referenced public records and discovered that Mrs. Valerie Vance legally wed Mr. Javier Dawson on December 20th, 2011, a mere 2 months subsequent to her signing the renunciation of parental rights. Could you elucidate how an individual deemed mentally incapable of making decisions concerning her children was simultaneously capable of making the legal decision to marry? An absolute silence descends upon the courtroom. I can discern the frantic pounding of my own heart as I await my daughter's response. Your Honour, Valerie articulates, her voice choked with emotion, I simply wished to commence anew. I believed it would prove beneficial for all involved. Beneficial for all or beneficial for you? The judge's question is both direct and incisive. Tears cascade down Valerie's cheeks, rendering her speechless. The judge proceeds, Mrs. Vance, I have also examined the scholastic records of your son, Paul, born in 2012. The documents reflect your consistent presence and active engagement in his educational journey. You have participated in parent-teacher conferences, school events, and maintained a stable domicile for him for 11 years. This clearly demonstrates your capacity to mother, yet you elected to exercise that capacity exclusively with the child who suited your convenience. Each word delivered by the judge falls like a hammer blow upon the fragile hopes of Valerie. I observe her collapse into her chair, utterly defeated. But most concerning of all, the judge declares, holding aloft the printed text messages, are these explicit threats you levied against your mother. Threatening with fabricated accusations of kidnapping is not merely morally reprehensible, it constitutes extortion, a serious felony. Attorney Mark Sullivan rises with evident desperation. Your Honour, I respectfully request a recess to confer with my client regarding the potential withdrawal of this lawsuit. Attorney Sullivan, the judge replies firmly, in light of the evidence presented, particularly the threats of extortion, I am legally obligated to refer this case to the District Attorney's Office for an evaluation as to whether criminal charges should be instituted against your client. Valerie cries out from her seat, No, please, I just wanted my children back. Mrs. Vance, the judge states in a severe tone, You did not seek the return of your children. You sought to reclaim the inheritance funds. The evidence overwhelmingly supports this conclusion. He turns his attention to me. Mrs. Eleanor Vance, do you wish to pursue charges of extortion against your daughter? The question blindsides me. For weeks I had rehearsed this very moment, yet the prospect of deciding whether to send my own daughter to prison had never occurred to me. I look at Valerie, her eyes fixed on me with a desperate plea. Then my gaze shifts to my grandchildren, their faces etched with anxious anticipation of my answer. Finally, I delve into the depths of my heart and uncover a resolution that astonishes even me. Your Honor, I declare, I do not wish to press criminal charges against my daughter. Valerie exhales in a palpable wave of relief, but I continue. However, I do request a restraining order prohibiting her from any contact with my grandchildren or myself for a minimum period of 5 years, unless through a legal representative and with the prior consent of this court. The judge nods approvingly. That appears to be a reasonable request. Is there anything further, Mrs. Vance? Yes, Your Honour. I request that it be officially recorded that Mrs. Valerie Vance voluntarily relinquished all parental rights over Arthur, Emily, and Andrea Vance on October 15th, 2011, and that any future attempts to claim custody or rights over these minors be deemed frivolous and legally void. Granted, the judge affirms, meticulously documenting his findings. Valerie stands, her movements unsteady. Mum, please don't do this. Don't take my children away from me forever. I turn to her, and for the first time throughout this entire proceeding, my voice emerges soft yet resolute. Valerie, I am not taking anything from you. You surrendered them 13 years ago. You penned that renunciation. You chose to forge a new life and forsake them. I am merely safeguarding what you abandoned. But they are my children, she sobs. No, I reply with unyielding firmness. They are the children you bore, but I am the one who raised them. I am the one who loves them without reservation. I am the one who sacrificed my peace of mind, my health, and my finances to provide them with a stable home. Arthur rises from his seat in the gallery. Your Honour, may I address the court? The judge nods. Please approach the bench. My grandson walks to the stand, exuding the dignity of a grown man, though I detect in his eyes the lingering pain of the child he once was. Your Honour, I wish to make it unequivocally clear for the record that my sisters and I do not consider Valerie Vance our mother. She is the woman who gave us life, but our mother is Eleanor Vance, the woman who raised us, educated us, loved us, and never forsaken us. He turns his attention to Valerie. And I want you to understand, Valerie, that should you ever genuinely transform in the future, should you ever be capable of offering true affection without seeking anything in return, should you ever demonstrate irrefutable proof of your maturity, then and only then might we consider engaging with you as an individual. But you will never be our mother. That esteemed title has been rightfully earned by Grandma Eleanor. Valerie breaks into uncontrollable sobs, but Arthur has not concluded his statement. And regarding Uncle Arthur's inheritance, he continues, I wish for you to be aware that upon our reaching the age of 21 and gaining unrestricted access to those funds, a portion will be allocated to Grandma Eleanor, as she deserves recognition for all the sacrifices she made on our behalf.
Emily and Andrea rise from their seats and join their brother before the stand. I also wish to speak, Emily announces in a clear voice. Valerie, I do not harbour animosity towards you, yet I do not know you. To me, you are a stranger who shares some of my genetic material. My true family resides here, with my grandma Eleanor and my siblings. Andrea, the youngest, meets Valerie's gaze directly. And I want you to comprehend that had you returned out of love, had you returned because you genuinely missed us, perhaps we could have forged a connection. but you returned seeking financial gain, and that reveals to us precisely who you truly are. The judge gently taps his gavel. By decree of this court, the following is hereby ruled. The permanent legal guardianship of Mrs. Eleanor Vance over the minors, Emily Vance and Andrea Vance, is confirmed. A restraining order of 5 years is established against Mrs. Valerie Vance. The custody claim filed by Mrs. Valerie Vance is declared null and void, and she is prohibited from initiating similar legal actions in the future without substantial new evidence of altered circumstances. Valerie collapses entirely, supported only by her attorney. "Mom," she whispers, "will you ever truly forgive me?" I walk towards her slowly, the immense weight of all these years pressing down upon my shoulders. Reaching her side, I place my hand upon her tear-streaked cheek. "Valerie, I forgave you long ago. However, forgiveness does not grant permission to endanger these children further.
They have endured sufficient hardship. What am I going to do now?" she asks, her voice reacquiring the small, lost tone of a child. "You are going to return home. You are going to care for the child you have. You are going to dedicate yourself to self-improvement, to becoming a better person, and perhaps at some point in the future, when you have genuinely transformed, my grandchildren will decide for themselves if they wish to encounter you. And if Javier abandons me because I failed to secure the funds." I sigh deeply. "Then perhaps it is time you learn to stand independently, my daughter. Perhaps it is time you cease basing your decisions on the expectations of men." The judge stands, signifying the conclusion of the hearing. This court is adjourned. As we depart the courtroom, a peculiar sentiment, a blend of triumph and sorrow washes over me. I have prevailed in the legal arena, yet my hope that my daughter's return was motivated by genuine reasons has been extinguished. But when my grandchildren encircle me in their embrace within the courthouse hallway, I know I made the correct determinations. At times, love necessitates protecting those dear to us, even if it means causing pain to those we also cherish. 3 months post-trial, I find myself in my modest kitchen, observing Andrea as she diligently practices her guitar for an upcoming school recital. The evening sun filters through the window, illuminating her focused expression, so reminiscent of my own during my youth. Arthur is enrolled in college, pursuing engineering with the assistance of a full scholarship we painstakingly secured. Emily contributes part-time at a bookstore while completing her high school education. Life has gradually regained its equilibrium, albeit in a different, more tranquil fashion. The incessant tension of anticipating someone's attempt to abduct the children has dissipated. The sleepless nights consumed by legal demands are a memory. The restraining order has bestowed upon us the serenity we desperately needed. The doorbell chimes and I proceed to answer it. It is Mrs. Elmer, my neighbour and the judge's sister, bearing a tray of freshly prepared tamales. "Eleanor, look what I've brought for you," she says, her smile radiating maternal warmth. "I know you've been working tirelessly, and I thought these might do you some good." "Thank you, Elmer. Please come in. Let's have some coffee." As we prepare the coffee, Elmer's gaze settles on me with an expression I recognize all too well. She has something to impart, but struggles to find the opportune moment. "Just say it, Elmer," I encourage. "We've known each other for 40 years. "It's about Valerie," she finally confides. "My brother Theodore informed me she's been inquiring about avenues to appeal the decision." A knot tightens in my stomach, but I draw a deep breath. And what were they informed? That she lacks any legal grounds for appeal, that the renunciation of parental rights she executed is valid, particularly considering her subsequent conduct. Elmer hesitates, but Eleanor, there's more. Javier left her last week. He took their son, Paul, and told her she was a failure, that she'd squandered an opportunity for easy money through foolish sentimentality. The news strikes me like a physical blow. Despite everything Valerie inflicted upon me, she remains my daughter, and the knowledge of her suffering causes me pain. Where is she residing now? In a small apartment near downtown. She's working as a night cleaner for offices. Theodore mentioned she appears utterly distraught, exceedingly thin, and profoundly sad. Andrea ceases her guitar practice and approaches us. Are you discussing my biological mother? Yes, my dear, I reply with unvarnished honesty. It appears she is experiencing a period of considerable hardship. Andrea settles beside me. Do you feel sympathy for her, Grandma? The question, delivered with such maturity, takes me by surprise. Yes, I do feel sympathy. Regardless of what transpired, she is still my daughter. I find no solace in knowing she is suffering. However, that does not negate the righteousness of our actions in defending ourselves, does it? I smile and gently stroke her hair. No, my love. In life, we are sometimes compelled to make exceedingly difficult choices. You can hold compassion for an individual while simultaneously safeguarding yourself from them. Elma interjects softly. Eleanor, there is another matter you should be apprised of. Valerie has been inquiring about the children. She has not contravened the restraining order, but she has been querying neighbours about their well-being, their academic progress, and any perceived needs. Do you suspect she's formulating a scheme? I ask, a wave of apprehension washing over me. I cannot say for certain, but Theodore wished for you to be aware just in case. That evening, after Andrea has retired for the night, I lie awake, my thoughts consumed by Valerie. I envision her solitary existence in that cramped apartment, bereft of her partner, her son, and stable employment. I contemplate her regret, her profound loneliness, her abject desperation. The following day, I arrive at a decision that astonishes even myself. I proceed to the supermarket and procure provisions for an entire week. Rice, beans, chicken, an assortment of vegetables, bread, and milk. I meticulously pack everything into bags and then drive to the address Elma had provided. The building appears aged and somewhat dilapidated. I ascend the stairs to the third floor and knock upon the door of apartment 3B. Slow footsteps can be heard, followed by Valerie's voice through the door. Who is it? It's me, Valerie, your mother. I've brought you some provisions, I state, hefting the bags. May I come in? She steps aside, granting me entry into the apartment. It is compact, yet impeccably clean. An aged sofa, a kitchen table accompanied by 2 chairs, and a small television constitute the furnishings. The table is burdened with a stack of unpaid bills. Why? She inquires as I place the bags in the kitchen. Because you are my daughter, I respond with simple candor. Because, irrespective of all that has transpired, I cannot countenance your going hungry. Valerie collapses onto the sofa, overcome by a torrent of tears. Mum, I have lost everything. Javier took Paul. He told me I was a failure, that I had squandered the opportunity for easy money by indulging in sentimentality. I sit beside her. And what did you reply? Nothing. I remained silent because I knew he was right. I am a failure. I lost my first children. I lost the inheritance. I lost Paul. I lost my home. Valerie, I state, my voice a blend of gentleness and unwavering firmness. You did not lose your first children. You abandoned them. There exists a crucial distinction. She gazes at me, her eyes swollen from weeping. You will always be reminding me of my errors? I am not endeavoring to remind you, but neither will I permit you to rewrite history. If your desire for change is genuine, you must commence by acknowledging the unvarnished truth of your actions. And what precisely is that truth? I rise and walk towards the window, gazing out at the street below. That you were blessed with 3 beautiful children, and you abandoned them because they proved inconvenient to your new relationship. that you formed a separate family and completely disavowed them for 13 years, that your reappearance was motivated solely by financial considerations. I'm aware of all that, she exclaims. I live with that guilt every single day. I turn back to her. Guilt is an unproductive emotion, Valerie. Guilt is merely self-pity in disguise. What is truly beneficial is sincere remorse and an authentic yearning for transformation. And how do you ascertain the authenticity of my remorse? Because were it genuinely felt, you would not have returned demanding custody. You would have returned imploring for forgiveness. You would have returned inquiring how you might contribute, not what you could acquire. Valerie remains silent for an extended period. Finally, she poses the question, is there any possibility that I might ever see my children again? Perhaps, I reply, but it would necessitate their terms when they deem themselves ready, if such a time ever arrives. And in the interim, focus on self-improvement, seek professional psychological assistance, secure stable employment, learn to navigate life independently without reliance on a man, strive to become the woman you would have ideally desired their mother to be. I move towards the door. The provisions will sustain you for a week. Following that, you will need to manage independently. Will you visit me again? She asks, her voice a mere whisper. I cannot say, Valerie. That outcome hinges upon you, upon the choices you make from this juncture forward. I depart the apartment, a peculiar sensation settling upon me. I remain uncertain whether my visit was the correct course of action, yet I am certain that I could not bear to witness my daughter enduring hunger, regardless of her past transgressions. Upon my return home, Arthur is in the kitchen, engrossed in his studies. He looks up as I enter. Grandma, where have you been? I was visiting your biological mother, I state candidly. His expression shifts instantaneously. Why? Because she was hungry and she remains my daughter. Arthur closes his books and regards me with a serious mien. Grandma, I sincerely hope this does not signify your intention to reintegrate her into our lives. No, my love, it signifies my capacity for compassion without compromising our security. He nods slowly. Do you believe she will ever truly change? I cannot say with certainty, I reply honestly. Should she opt for transformation, it will stem from her personal volition, not from external coercion or a notion of rescue. As I wind down for the evening, I reflect on the profound insights this ordeal has imparted. True affection at times necessitates establishing clear boundaries. Safeguarding those dear to us may involve declining requests from individuals we also hold in high regard. And occasionally, in rare instances, justice transcends retribution. It is merely the acknowledgement of the natural outcomes of one's choices, accompanied by a conscious preference for compassion over bitterness. A year post-trial, I find myself amidst my garden, observing the spring-planted tomatoes mature. Arthur has achieved a distinguished college degree and secured a position with an engineering enterprise. Emily has been admitted to university, benefiting from a partial academic grant. Andrea, now 17 years of age, directs her school's musical ensemble. Uncle Arthur's financial legacy remains undisturbed within their custodial accounts, awaiting each beneficiary's 21st birthday. Most significantly, however, my grandchildren have thrived, free from the persistent spectre of potential desertion. Mrs. Alma arrives with developments. Eleanor, I must inform you of something concerning Valerie. What is it now? I inquire, bracing myself internally. She has commenced formal psychological therapy. Her attendance has been consistent for the past 6 months. Theodore relayed that she is funding these appointments independently through her employment as a cleaner. This revelation genuinely astonishes me. Furthermore, there is additional news. She has obtained daytime employment as a receptionist at a medical facility. Her nocturnal cleaning duties have ceased. Her demeanor appears improved, more settled. Have inquiries been made about the children? No. In fact, when informed of your visit, she stated that her mother had already extended ample support and that it was now her responsibility to demonstrate personal change without external assistance. For the first time in years, a peculiar sense of pride washes over me regarding my daughter. That very afternoon, Andrea returns from school with a contemplative expression. Grandmother, may I pose a question to you? Always, my dear. Do you envision a future where I might acknowledge my birth mother? This query does not catch me off guard. I anticipated this juncture. I cannot say, Andrea. It is a determination only you can make when you feel prepared. Would it displease you if at some point I chose to seek her out? No, my darling. I would be immensely proud of you for exercising your autonomy as a mature individual. And if I opted never to meet her, that would also inspire pride. The ultimate choice rests entirely with you. That evening, as I prepare our meal, my thoughts drift to our shared past. For an extended period, I harbored resentment towards Valerie. Resentment for burdening me with a responsibility that was not initially mine. Resentment for neglecting her children. Resentment for reappearing solely for financial gain. Yet, after all this time, I comprehend that this bitterness acted as an anchor, binding both her and myself. Its relinquishment has liberated me. Last week marked Emily's 19th birthday. During the festivities, she shared a sentiment that deeply touched me. Grandmother, thank you for our salvation, but more importantly, thank you for instilling the understanding that genuine love does not desert. Arthur, now 21 years old, has unrestricted access to his inherited funds. His initial act was to allocate $10,000 for my benefit. For all you have expended on our behalf over these years, he articulated, I accepted the funds not from a place of need, but because his gesture of reciprocity was significant. I often contemplate the alternative timeline had Valerie returned with genuine intentions. Had she sought absolution instead of legal recourse for custody? Had she demonstrated sincere remorse rather than legal threats? Perhaps a harmonious coexistence might have materialized. Possibly we could have forged a semblance of an extended family. Perhaps my grandchildren would have had the opportunity to encounter their biological mother under stable conditions. However, life unfolds not in hypotheticals, but through the decisions we make with the information available to us at any given moment. We possess that information. I elected to shield 3 children from abandonment. I chose to offer them unwavering affection when their own mother could not. I committed to sacrificing my peace of mind and my financial resources to provide them with security. And when the moment arrived to champion their cause, I stood firm, defending them with every fiber of my being. I harbor no regrets regarding any of those choices. Today, observing Andrea practicing her guitar, Emily immersed in her college studies, and Arthur charting his professional trajectory, I am certain of the rectitude of my decisions. They have matured into responsible, compassionate, and industrious individuals. They are commendable people who contribute positively to society. They serve as living testament to the compatibility of unconditional affection and firm boundaries. Occasionally, individuals inquire if I harbor animosity towards Valerie for her past actions. The answer is no. While I do not detest her, I also do not condone her behavior. I acknowledge her youth at the time of her children's birth. I understand the immense pressures of motherhood. I recognize that we all falter, but I also grasp that certain missteps carry enduring repercussions. And the decision to forsake one's children is not a mere oversight. It is a defining characteristic of one's moral compass. Valerie prioritized her new life over her offspring. I prioritized those children over my personal comfort. We both bear the weight of our respective choices. The crucial distinction lies in my ability to find solace each night, assured that the well-being of the children was my paramount concern. She conversely must forever contend with the knowledge that she absented herself when their need was greatest. If there is a singular lesson to be gleaned from this entire saga, it is that justice does not invariably manifest as punishment. Sometimes justice simply entails each individual receiving the just deserts of their conduct. I am worthy of my grandchildren's unconditional love because I bestowed it upon them for 13 years. Valerie merits the absence of that love because she chose to be absent for 13 years. This is not vengeance, it is the natural unfolding of events. And perhaps, if she has undergone genuine personal growth, if she is actively engaged in self-improvement, my grandchildren may, at some future point, extend her an opportunity. However, this will be their prerogative, on their terms, when they feel prepared. In the interim, I shall continue to fulfill my established role.
That of their grandmother, their guardian, their sanctuary, their unwavering love, for this is the essence of true affection. It does not abandon, it does not bargain, it imposes no stipulations, it simply exists. Steadfast as the dawn, resilient as the ancient roots of a venerable tree, serene as an unending prayer. And ultimately, this is sufficient. Did you find my narrative engaging? And from what locale are you experiencing this story? Let us connect in the comments section. If you appreciated this tale, your support through a super thanks would enable me to continue sharing such narratives.
I extend my sincere gratitude for your generous encouragement. I eagerly anticipate your thoughts on this story. Featured on screen are 2 additional life chronicles that I highly recommend. My channel offers a wealth of further content. Remember to subscribe. Until our next life story, with affection and profound respect.